Springfield's Talk 1041, and hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed, and just really want to thank you for being here this morning on a Tuesday. It was up until like 10 minutes ago. I thought it was Wednesday.
Oh, isn't that the worst?
I just
I
was
hate when it happens.
I was sitting at my desk, and I was thinking, what if it actually wasn't Wednesday? And then I looked at the calendar, I was like, wait, it's not Wednesday.
Then you were like, boo.
I don't know what my days have just been so
Well, it's probably because of Farm Fest, because you worked over the weekend.
Well, you know, the funny thing about Farm Fest is when Friday, of course, we were out there before before the show started, before the sun was up on Friday, and I was there. I was one of the last to leave, and I'm headed home, and I have KSGF on and Mark Levin's on. I'm like, why is Mark Levin on? What's going on? It's Saturday. And
no.
I thought it was Saturday, and it took me a moment. It's like, oh, wait a minute. This is still Friday. You ever have one of those days that's so long where you look back in the morning and it seems like it was yesterday? That's what had happened. And then Saturday came, and we were out there all day again. And then Sunday came, and it was about 5 o'clock at night, and I felt like it was Saturday. So I was all messed up.
And it's just carried on.
It has carried on.
Carried on through the week.
I saw a listener that I've known for years at Farm Fest, and just, briefly, as she was walking by, I waved to her. And in fact, I should look up exactly what, because I want to get it exactly right. Well, I'll do it during the news. I'll look it up, because there was a funny posting she made about Farm Fest that it made me chuckle. And I thought, well, I'm just going to share this. But I want to get it exactly right, word for word. So I'll do it during the news. Coming up, there's, I don't know. I've briefly touched on it. If you've been following this, Attorney General candidate in Virginia, he's the Democrat candidate. And it was revealed that he, at one point, some time ago, had been texting about, fantasizing about the assassination of one of his opponents and the death of his kids. And now there's been a surfacing of text messages in which he argues that if a few police officers were killed, then that might prevent killing of other people. Because, police officers are bad, so you got to put down the enemy to send a message. This is the Democrat candidate for Attorney General of the state of Virginia. Now, the police union, as you can imagine, is calling for him to step down. He has over 200 endorsements from Democrats, and none of them, at least as of last night, have even removed their endorsement, let alone ask for him to step down. Can we finally dismiss this notion of the party of violence thing? Well, that's a both sides problem. Can we get past that at this point? When you have what is supposed to be the top law enforcement official of Virginia, the guy who's running for it, that he jokes about the murdering or the assassination of political opposition. He jokes about their children dying and enjoying that. Notes that if we could just maybe get more police officers murdered, then that might put them in their place and they'll stop, being a real problem in our society, and we can actually save lives doing it. And you have over 200 Democrats that have endorsed this person, not a single one withdrawing their endorsement. Okay, are we ready to move past this ridiculous notion that both sides have a problem when it comes to rhetoric? And aside from that, you still have Democrats that every time the violence issue comes up and they face it, they're out there saying, well, everyone needs to bring down the rhetoric. But they continue to not do that. I mean, it's like, and part of, see, when Democrats do it, there's always an okay reason for it. In fact, the leading justification for this AG candidate, Jay Jones, I kid you not, the leading justification is, oh, everybody fantasizes about murdering people they don't like. Normalization of violence. See, I believe in their world, this is how prevalent violence and normalized violence has become in the Democrat Party. I think they genuinely don't think it's that big of a deal. Oh, who cares? So what? Talk about murdering some police officers, fantasize about murdering political opposition and their children. I mean, come on, doesn't everyone do that? No, everyone doesn't. Not a two sides issue. This is a Democrat Party thing. There also needs to be, we're going to just do a brief at some point during the program here. Look back at the history of the Klan. The existence of Antifa is today's Klan in its way of operating and its relationship to the Democrat Party. The Klan was an organization eventually nationwide, particularly in the South, that utilized violence and the threat of violence to intimidate Republicans. And the Democrat Party they were all on the same page. And while some Democrats openly cheered, most of the Democrats, they just sat silently and did nothing. While the Democrat activists put on hoods and went around using threats and intimidation and attempts to murder in order to try and intimidate blacks and whites who were supportive of integration and opposed to slavery, and Republican lawmakers. It's Antifa. The Democrat Party and Antifa, that relationship is the exact same carbon copy as post-Civil War during the Reconstruction era of the Democrats and the KKK. Same thing. Same purpose, same relationship, and in many ways having the same impact. The Klan was successful in intimidating enough Republicans in the South that is how it is that eventually Democrats regained control, through elections. It was because of those threats and intimidation tactics. Same thing we're dealing with Antifa today. Oh, and I'm sure if there was an MSNBC or a CNN back then, they would have been on there. You would have had all those great Southern Democrats saying, well, now the Klan, see, it's not really an organization. It's just an idea. That's all that it is. After all, it's just a figment of your imagination. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see patchy fog for your morning drive and then mostly cloudy with a high near 75. Tonight partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny with a high near 77.
Oh, I was going to read. I mentioned
yes.
that posting. So this person, I'm not going to say the person's name, but I don't know why I thought this was funny. Posted the following. this person and then said, at Farm Fest, most uninteresting event ever. And the animals were gross, but I scored some swag for my coworkers and then a pic of, because there was tons of free stuff there. And the first comment read, not according to Nick Reed. And the response was, that was the best booth there. I know. Wasn't that nice? You know, I thought about I thought about that comment and how here's someone that thought, well, Nick was talking about how you don't have to be a farmer to enjoy this. And so here, this person comes out like, actually, I'm not enjoying this at all. I should have clarified that while, yes, you don't have to, because I'm not a farmer, and I really like farm and I love the animals. I love farm animal. I just, one of those people. I like that sort of thing. While you don't have to be a farmer to really enjoy Farm Fest, that doesn't mean everyone who's not a farmer will. And that's an important thing to note. And I probably should have. Obviously, it's like any event, it's not going to be for everyone. But I thought that that was pretty funny. That actually, I've followed that person on Facebook for a very long time, and that individual usually has some of the funniest quips of. Yeah, I mean, so I found that one pretty, and I was honored to get a mention.
There you go.
This dual world that Democrats insist we all live in which they say one thing or do another, or they say one thing and then say the opposite, and running around claiming that supporting political acts of violence and calling for acts of violence and fantasizing about acts of violence is a both sides issue, and we just all need to bring it down. While, I mean, out of the same breath, calling for violence and ramping up rhetoric. it's this and they do it right in front of us. And I suppose, because you and I, we think, how can they do that? I mean, even if you're dishonest, that they must recognize everyone sees the laughable presentation of claiming that you are opposed to certain behavior, and then in the exact same segment on the news show, you do what it is that you say that you're against. And I think there's a few conditions that have created a Democrat Party that behaves this way. One, prior to the internet, Democrats, and frankly, I mean, all politicians would be potentially subject to this, became very accustomed to being able to behave in that way without people really knowing it. Particularly if you were a senator or a member of Congress, you could go to a town hall and you could go to a fundraiser and you can say one thing and then get on TV and say the complete opposite and just go all over the place and change your position, change your rhetoric, because you did not have people with cell phones filming everything. You didn't have the ability to get online and look up old news clips. And so it created this comfort of the ability to brazenly lie or change your story and change your rhetoric and not be called out for it, because people didn't necessarily know it was happening. Or if you did have people that, I mean, your own people knew it, obviously, but hey, that's part of the game. This is what you do. It's performative. Or even if you had some people that were really, really, that maybe they don't like that elected official, so they're following them around, and they're like, don't you know, this guy said this over here, but nobody's listening to him because there's not the internet to go on social media and to post this stuff. You couple that with a media that is there to protect you. A media that will never call you out for these things. Rarely. I mean, we're seeing a little bit of it with this government shutdown and some of the mainstream media rolling the tape of these Democrats talking about how you should never let the government shut down, and now they are. I mean, they don't push them real hard on the issue, but generally speaking, Democrats have not had to worry about even that. And you also throw in, at least for a period of time, control over social media, the censorship when the Biden administration was in charge, and you had the Department of Justice and the FBI that were calling and threatening these different social media sites until they pulled content they did not like. I mean, we all know what happened with the Hunter Biden laptop story. It's just such a hallmark of this behavior from the left in this country, in which preemptively you had the Biden administration threatening all these social media sites so that none of them would, they all banned the story that only the New York Post reported. And we would learn that it did have significant impact on the election, with significant amount of people never even knowing about the story because of the censorship. And that has just given Democrats this, it has raised them in an environment generationally, from prior to the internet to being protected by the media to the ability to censor the internet, this comfort in being completely contradictory in a public forum and feeling as if you don't really need to worry about the repercussions. And then you throw in the fact that your base, they don't care. It makes no difference to your base what position you take, what stance you take. It makes no difference whatsoever because they have just, they've signed up. They've had the Kool-Aid. They like the Kool-Aid, and it doesn't matter what you say. All of those things are what make elected Democrats in today's environment feel comfortable going out there and, as again, real life example, claiming that calls for violence and violence, it's a both sides issue, and why we really need to bring down the rhetoric, but then you're out there spreading the very rhetoric you claim you need to bring down. watching this, the reaction to the Attorney General candidate Jay Jones of Virginia, and these quote they're old text messages. And it was regarding, let me see here. I know most of you are familiar with this, but let's see, in the 2022 exchange, so it's not like it was 20 years ago, Jones said it would be a good thing if his former legislative colleagues' children died. He also said 3 people, 2 bullets. Republican House Speaker Todd Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Spoiler, he also texted, put Republican Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. When the person he was communicating with pushed back about Jones hoping that Jennifer Gilbert's children would die, he confirmed, yes, he was hoping for that. Saying only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. And I think that many people recognize that is where the left is today, that if that's what it takes to get you to agree with them, which is what he's saying, to move on policy. Well, hey, listen, if it takes somebody's kids dying, that sort of tragic event, in order to get them to recognize that they're wrong and come over to our side, so be it. This is the guy who wants to be Attorney General. Well, the latest is, interview Monday, Jones said in a 2020 conversation that if a few police officers died, it might prevent killings of other people, according to a Virginia Scope report. Jones denied making such a comment, the outlet reported. The outlet asked Conyer to clarify what Jones was referring when he reportedly said, I've told you this before, in a 2022 text exchange. Conyer, or Coyner, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Coyner, alleged that it was connected to a heated phone conversation in 2020 about stripping qualified immunity protections from police officers, which shield officers from lawsuits. He told the outlet that he had a heated conversation on the topic and detailed his alleged stance. And, the eventual response from the wannabe Attorney General was, making the position that, well, a few of these police officers were killed, maybe they'd learn their lesson and they'd stop being such, horrible, bad people and stop being such racist, and then we'd all be better off. The police union calling on Jay Jones to quit after claim more dead cops would mean fewer shootings. The Fraternal Order of Police of Virginia sent a letter to Jones on Monday calling for him to bow out of the race immediately, while also condemning his actions. Quote, the Virginia Fraternal Order of Police is aware of the recent text message scandal involving you, the Democrat candidate for Attorney General. While the incident may have occurred in 2022, this conduct has no place in our society, our democracy, especially from an elected official who's running to be the top prosecutor in Virginia. The men and women of Virginia Fraternal Order unequivocally condemn these violent text messages sent by you about a political opponent and his family. There are over 200 Democrats that have endorsed this piece of trash, and none of them have withdrawn their endorsement. We're not even talking, a lot of folks have noted that none of these Democrats have publicly called on him to withdraw from the race. They won't even pull endorsements. And by the way, when you are endorsing someone, you are endorsing them. You are endorsing their beliefs. You are endorsing their thoughts. You are endorsing the things that is the point of an endorsement. You're saying this person is a person. I'm telling you what they are, the things they do, the things they say. This is what we need in the position, which is why I'm endorsing them. I believe in them. You don't pick and choose. Well, I endorse this part, but not that part. So you have over 200 Democrats that are endorsing what it is that this person has said to colleagues. regarding political opposition and police officers. And it's all surrounding death, by the way. And this position that many of them are taking, well, those old text messages, they're old, they're 2-3 years old. Well, the endorsements aren't. Those are fresh. This is not a two-party problem. The Democrat Party is the party of violence. And they have normalized it to the point that this sort of behavior they dismiss as, come on, no big deal. For traffic, regarding Democrat Attorney General for Virginia candidate Jay Jones, who has texted colleagues fantasizing about murdering political opponents, the death of their children, and claiming that if more police officers were killed, ultimately it'd be a good thing because you'd have less shootings. Even Joe and Mika say that Jay Jones needs to drop out. When you've lost Morning Joe, there's only one way. I know this may seem obvious. There could be a potential scenario in which Democrats actually, in a situation like this, would call for their candidate to drop out. And that would be if they felt that they were going to lose the election because of that person continuing to run and dropping out, there would be enough time for another candidate to step in that was a Democrat and win. Because it's all about winning for them. It's the same reason they forced Joe Biden out. He didn't do anything different. They point to that debate as the turning point, but the only reason the debate was a turning point was because public opinion turned. I mean, none of us were shocked by what happened during that debate. We're like, yeah, this is Joe Biden. This is the same Joe Biden we've been talking about for a few years now. But the minute that Democrats became fearful that him being in that race could lose them the presidency, and they felt that strategically, as bad as the odds may have been, their odds of retaining control would be by replacing him with Kamala Harris, they did it. That's nothing to do with principle. Nothing to do with morals. And, this upcoming election, I don't know what the laws are in Virginia, but I suspect at this point it's too late for any other Democrat to be able to replace him on the ballot. I mean, at this point, what are we in, September, October? No, those ballots may be printed again. Every state's going to be a little bit different. But if this were, if it were possible, if this situation caused a polling situation that indicated that they were going to lose that race, and they had the opportunity to put another Democrat in there that they felt would win that race, then they'd do it in a minute. It would have nothing to do with the abhorrent behavior and the vile mindset of this sick individual. That's irrelevant to them. It's just all about power.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today, patchy fog for your morning drive and then mostly cloudy with a high near 75. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny with a high near 77.
Yesterday we had Congressman Burleson on. One of the questions was regarding these judges and what can be done about these judges. It was specifically in regards to the judge that claimed that the federal government did not have the authority to protect its own property and employees. This with the dispatching of the National Guard by President Trump in order to protect federal buildings and employees in Portland, and the Democrats attempting to stop that so that Antifa could have free reign over the city and take over those different areas of the city. And Congressman Burleson noted that, this is something they've got to figure out what it is that they can do. Now, a different judge, the judge that gave only 8 years to the would-be assassin for Kavanaugh, when a minimum of 30 was a minimum of 30, gave 8. Senator Cotton has called for the impeachment of that judge. Cotton, Republican Senator Arkansas, suggested that the Biden-appointed judge should be investigated or impeached after Nicholas Roski, who attempted to assassinate Supreme Court Judge Brett Kavanaugh in 2022, received an 8-year prison sentence, less than a third of the recommended minimum. During an interview on Fox News, Cotton criticized Judge Boardman for having sentenced Roski, who now identifies as transgender, and of course, we know all that crap. Cotton said that usually any effort to impeach a federal judge is ill-advised and goes nowhere, adding that he thinks the House should begin an investigation as to whether or not this is grounds for impeachment. when this judge expressly refuses to give a proper sentence because she disagrees with the Trump administration's policy on not putting men in women's prisons, I think the House should begin an investigation on whether this is grounds for impeachment. Politico reported that the Biden-appointed judge, quote, questioned whether Roski would receive adequate mental health treatment in federal prison because, of course, it's all about taking care of the would-be assassin. When delivering the sentence, the judge took into account that Roski, a biological male, identified as a female. So apparently, this gives you a reduced sentence, at least in the mind of leftist judges. If you try to murder someone, all you have to do is claim you are the opposite gender from what you actually are, and apparently you get less than a third of the recommended minimum sentence. This is the privilege of being transgender in this country. I think at the same time, this is a warning to the Supreme Court, who increasingly, and this obviously being a very specific example, comes under threats from left-wing activists. You think about the way that the left either rewards or allows for or eases up on those who try to assassinate people that are not on the left politically. After Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer stood on the Supreme Court steps, whipped a crowd into a frenzy, warning that if they dare, and he called out Kavanaugh specifically, did anything to overturn Roe v. Wade, they won't know what hit them. And that's exactly the motivation that this individual used. Now, despite the fact that after that rhetoric, and you had numerous Democrat activists find the homes of these Supreme Court justices and protest outside of them, which, whether you like it or not, that is a felony. It is a federal offense to use protesting outside the homes of judges in an effort to intimidate them into voting one way or another, which, I mean, that's what they were saying. That was their whole point. And Merrick Garland told law enforcement to stand down and let them do it. To create that environment of lots of people, lots of chaos, which of course would allow for Roski to make his way almost into Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh's home. You know, you start to look at the behavior, whether it is the Department of Justice under the Biden administration, Merrick Garland, telling law enforcement to allow protesters, some of which clearly had violent intent, at least one of them, let them violate the law by protesting outside the homes. The one individual that came close to assassinating a Supreme Court justice for political purposes, he stated it, that was his goal, was to stop, was to fulfill what Chuck Schumer said and stop the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And then a judge gives less than a third of the minimum sentence. At the same time, areas like we're learning in Chicago, when you have federal law enforcement coming under attack, calling for backup from local police, and the 911, the conversation that is released shows that they were told to stand down and not respond to the 911 calls. You see what they're doing? They are making it very clear to everyone that if you are out of line with their beliefs and their efforts, you will be a target. And they will let you be a target. They will assist. There's no getting around it. This is assisting the people who are trying to murder ICE agents. This is assisting the people who are trying to murder Supreme Court justices. They are on their side. Consistently. If ever, I mean, you think about the left and how they go apoplectic if Donald Trump criticizes the Supreme Court. What does he think he is? Doesn't he understand how dangerous that is? Go around using that sort of rhetoric. Meanwhile, a judge gives barely a slap on the wrist to a left-wing activist who tries to murder a Supreme Court justice, and they're like, that's okay. That's no problem. He's trans after all. There absolutely should be an impeachment of this judge. And let Democrats, if anything, so the world can see and watch Democrats defend giving less than the minimum sentence to someone who tried to murder a Supreme Court justice in order to fulfill the Democrats' wants and desires. Make them defend it. This is such an absolute no-brainer. The American people need to see this. The American people, because, clearly, if they turn on just your mainstream media, well, it's a both sides problem, see. That's what they get. But you hold impeachment hearings on this judge? We're talking about assassinating Supreme Court justices, and a judge giving barely a slap on the wrist? Make Democrats defend that. Make them get up there. Let the American people see how it is that they tried to excuse this sort of behavior. The more truth people know, the better we all are. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Jonathan Turley on the shockingly low punishment given to the would-be assassin of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh.
Well, it was quite a difference. The federal sentencing laws after a case called Booker are no longer binding on federal judges, but judges try to stay roughly in the same continent. This sentence seemed to come from a different planet. The minimum sentence recommended by the guidelines was 30 years. she was off by about 22 years. And the rationale that she used raised more concerns. Like, one could understand that this person did call the police, ultimately, obviously has some mental issues. But this person also researched how killing a justice could change the outcome of cases, and said that, you know, he was going to shoot for 3, but how killing 1 might flip the balance on the Supreme Court. This was a very premeditated act. So this is a very light sentence. And then her rationale that he might need treatment for his gender, transformation or procedures is really quite unique. And many of us were really scratching our heads. She was using that almost like it was a sentencing departure. And that's the first time I've ever seen that.
A couple of things here. One, I mean, he seems to be somewhat flabbergasted by this. I'm not at all. We should be beyond this sort of thing from left-wing judges being shocking. We should be well beyond that at this point. We're not really paying attention if this is the sort of thing that surprises us. But this was, as he noted, very calculated. This is an individual that researched killing of Supreme Court justices to prevent overturning Roe v. Wade. He did. This was a very deliberate act. 8 years. The guy's not even that old. I don't know. Will you look up how old he is, Jonathan Roski? I'm curious. I know. I get the impression. I think he's, I don't know, maybe early 30s or so. 8 years. He'll probably get off for good behavior at some point anyhow. It's federal, so I think in federal, you've got to serve 80%, I believe, of your sentence. But what do you think this says to Supreme Court justices? They're not naive. And I think this is part of what this judge's ultimate goal is. It's in line with what the would-be assassin's goal is, and that is to alter the outcome of these rulings, to frighten Supreme Court justices into ruling in a way that is in line with their belief system. And they know that if you are an individual, if you are one of these psychotic left-wing, relatively young people, and you see that attempting to do something like this, if you fail, like if you succeed, they probably don't care if they get shot, if they spend the rest of their life in prison because they're doing something noble and virtuous. It is worth it. It is worth it to do that. But of course, failing, if you fail, what's it worth? 8 years? Yeah, probably.
29.
29 years old. 29 years old. So, I mean, the guy is going to be just outside of his mid-30s when he's out walking around on the street again. I believe this isn't... I think it could get lost in being seen as sympathetic towards, another transgender shooter. And, of course, we have to feel sorry for them. Not the people that they target, but feel sorry for the transgender. I think it's more than that. I think this is to create this atmosphere of fear, to feed into this environment in which conservative judges realize that they are targeted by individuals that will not even come close to facing the minimum punishment if they get caught trying to take them out for potentially ruling in ways that are out of line with the Democrat Party. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. So much more than just your standard realtor. She's a little bit like Jiminy Cricket at times, sitting on your shoulder, reminding you, she's your conscience. Let your conscience be your guide. And I say that because it is, when you start out, you're looking for that new home, and you know what you want. You want a wood fireplace. You want at least 2 bathrooms. You'd like to have a basement, but you don't have to. You do need a fenced yard. So you have all these things you want, and then you're looking, and you're not finding exactly what you want. You're looking, and after a while, you find a house it doesn't have the fireplace that you want, and, well, the backyard's not fenced, but it does have this other stuff, and because you get tired of looking. And it's sort of like, when you've been on the dating scene for the longest time, all of a sudden you start loosening your standards a little bit. But she's there to remind you, hey, listen, now just remember, there were reasons that you said you wanted all of these things. Now, of course, obviously you can buy any home you want, but this is going to be your home, so just keep that in mind. So she's a lot of realtors, and I get it, I understand it. So, oh yeah, let's go ahead, let's get you in that, let's get this paperwork signed, get that commission, and move on to the next one. That's not Emily Johnson. So if you want somebody that's really, truly going to be there as your advocate and remind you, maybe when you start to loosen your standards just a little bit because you're tired of looking, she'll help remind you why it is that you said we want that fenced-in yard or the 2 bedrooms or the 2 bathrooms or whatever it may be. And just sort of recenter you so you can make a better judgment when it comes to whether to pull the trigger or not. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Coming up, it is just beyond me, the lunacy of some of these people. This, I'm sure, soon to be mayor of New York, Mamdani, and really doubling down on this absurd notion that whenever there is we're going to talk about this because of a recent shooting in New York, a domestic abuse call, some woman calls and her husband's beating her, calls 911 because she's fearful of her life. Mamdani's plan is to not even send police. Send some counselor that maybe just got out of college. Maybe a female one, 5'4", 120 pounds. Oh yeah. The level of stupidity. We've got news coming up. I'm Nick Reed. If you want a great home loan, the place to go is iwantagreathomeloan.com. Now, that is your portal to get the process started, but it is also a landing page for a lot of great information, including 10 commandments on what to do, what not to do, more importantly, once you get an approval. There's some things that may be obvious, like don't go out and get a loan for a new car. That's not going to help things. But there are things that you may think will be helpful, like, oh, an aunt I didn't know died and left me $10,000. I'm going to put that in the bank account. That'll be good because then they'll see I have even more money. I'm even more financially secure. Maybe it should work that way, but it doesn't work that way. There are a lot of what I would say are not conventional wisdom events or actions that you can take that can disrupt that entire process. But that's part of what it is that the characters in the team do in order to make the process as smooth as possible. They give you proactively a heads up. Hey, here's a list of things. Do not do these things. And it's going to make the process go a lot easier. And that's not the sort of thing that you necessarily get with most folks. All your home loan needs, refinancing, even reverse mortgage. iwantagreathomeloan.com because you do. Zoran Memdani might point to Sunday morning's event in Flatbush as exactly what he's thinking of when he says that he'll order the NYPD not to even respond to most domestic violence calls, sending social workers instead. After all, the subject of the complaint wound up shot dead by responding officers. Except that it turned out the guy was carrying, though his victim did not know it when she rang 911 for help, as an ex she'd gotten a protection order from was banging on her door. She plainly told him the police were coming, and he was on his way out of the building, gun in hand, when 6 officers showed up at the scene. They called him in to drop the weapon. He fled instead. The cops pursued, shouting about a dozen times for him to disarm before one of them shot to bring him down. They wound up rushing him in the squad car to Kings County Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Memdani said this proves his point, that cops should not be answering domestic violence calls at all, that instead social workers should be sent. Now, do you get it? This is how jacked up the thinking is of some of these. And this is the guy that is, I just firmly believe he's going to be the next mayor of New York. When we're talking about the issue of who should respond to 911 calls, when you have a crazy ex-husband trying to beat down the door of the apartment to his ex-wife, and she calls 911 asking for help. And okay, so open question. Should the police come? Or should some social worker that may be straight out of college, 21, 22-year-old gal with a clipboard, 5'2", 110 pounds. Well, you see a real-life scenario like this play out in which a firearm is pulled, shots are fired, and so forth. Now, normal people like, yeah, you know what? A crazy guy like that is pretty dangerous. And if he is trying to beat down the door of his ex-wife and is violent, he may not have the highest level of respect for women already. So perhaps sending some social worker to try and convince him to stop probably isn't the best thing to do. So, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. We should clearly send law enforcement. That's not how the left thinks. Memdani's position here is, oh, this just proves I'm right. Do you know how many lives are going to be put in danger? How many? See, and I know how many of you are thinking, well, that'll change the first time one of these social workers gets murdered. No, it won't. That's not how the left works. Just like a lot of normal Americans thought, well, the first, time ICE agents get targeted by a sniper, or the first time one of these deranged Democrat activists try to take out a Supreme Court justice or shoot up Republican lawmakers or take shots at President Trump, well, they'll stop the rhetoric. They'll see. They'll understand what we've been saying. That's not how they work. They don't care. It could become open season on social workers in New York under the policy of Mamdani, and they would blame guns or, anything other than them, of course. It's never their fault. I don't frankly know what sort of, I mean, I don't even know how this is going to work. I can't imagine. Just thinking in terms of real life. So you live in New York. You're fully aware of the crazy people that are out there. You're fully aware of domestic abuse situations in which it's the vast majority of the time a crazed, out-of-control guy who has no respect for women, has a history of beating women, choking women, pummeling women, and then Mamdani becomes mayor, and he's like, okay, we've got a new division over here. We're going to cut our police force by 10%, and we're going to hire social workers, and your job is going to be to answer these 911 calls. Who in their right mind would sign up for that job as a social worker? I mean, you may get one or two naive leftists who choose to live in a fantasy world, but at some point, you know they're going to get harmed. These are individuals that are not equipped. Law enforcement, obviously, we understand they are going to come into harm's way because they are dealing with these very sorts of people, which is part of the reason that they're trained. They're trained with batons, they're trained with tasers, they're trained with mace, they're trained with firearms, because we recognize they are dealing with dangerous people. And to send unarmed, untrained, sometimes just out of college, or maybe it'll be some 56-year-old woman who's a counselor that they're going to send to how reckless. Now, if you're a guy who likes to beat his wife, this is fantastic. I mean, you start laying into her, you're beating her over the head with an ashtray, she says she's going to call 911. Oh, okay, go ahead. You're not worried about police showing up with firearms. You're going to have some counselor show up. It's just, these people are so stupid. And the problem is, it's dangerous. I can't imagine, number one, the number of these social workers that are going to be needed, and I can't imagine social workers signing up for this. So here's what I'm wondering. Are people that are all ready, employees, social workers for the city, are they going to be told this is part of your new job? So in other words, individuals that never signed up for this sort of extremely dangerous work, are they going to be told this is what you have to do now? I can't wait to see that play out. I mean, this city, can we just write it off at this point? I mean, I guess give New Yorkers a chance, but I don't really see a path in which those complete idiotic morons in New York City are going to pick anyone other than Mamdani. Just write it off. I mean, any area of land with human beings, I suppose, can always come back from the ashes. But at some point, I think you got to say there's almost, at least generationally, no coming back. It's done. They have succeeded in completely destroying that city. Traffic in a moment. Right now, the latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today you'll see patchy fog for your morning drive and then mostly cloudy with a high near 75. Tonight partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny with a high near 77.
Some of your text messages regarding Ma'am Donnie insistent on implementing something Democrats have talked about for some time, and that is when there is a domestic abuse call, do not send law enforcement and instead send some social worker. Some of these text messages in the Pyramid Roofing Company text line, which is 417-447-KSGF. I wonder what social worker would even accept the assignment. And this is, first off, are these going to be new jobs? And if so, who in their right mind would sign up for one? I mean, you may get some. This is the scary thing about it. Some naive young person right out of college thinking, that haven't had they're not dumb or anything, but just haven't had the real life experience of understanding that not everyone can be reasoned with. When you're young and you're optimistic and you're learning in the classroom, you think that you can just reason with people. They'll see that I'm nice and I care about them and I'm just there. That's not how life works. If it did, you wouldn't have domestic violence. The reason that domestic violence exists, particularly in extreme cases, is because at least one of the two parties is not reasonable and does not care what other people think. If they are willing to lay the beat down and even potentially try and murder the person they're supposed to love, they are certainly not going to suddenly have some sort of emotional connection and understand that you're there to help and feel wonderful and we're all going to sit down. But you can understand, and some of you may remember a time when you felt that way about certain things. I mean, not this specific scenario, but that you could just go out and just, change the world by talking to people. And we just, if they just understood and listened to me, it's not how it works. But you will have some, and in all likelihood, they'll be female, because women tend to be more optimistic and tend to be more optimistic in the sense of, just connecting with people emotionally, and they're going to understand. And so I think you're going to have some naive, young, out of college, female social workers that have no concept of how dangerous this is. And they're going to be sold the bill of goods. Oh, yes, you're going to do wonderful things, and you're going to be, doing this and that, and then, it's going to end up horrible. And this to another point, send an unarmed social worker to confront an armed, ticked-off domestic abuser. What could possibly go wrong? Another noting that the most dangerous call a police officer can ever make is a domestic violence call, because they basically both could gang up on the police officer. And this, there's truth to this. These are some of the most dangerous calls. And statistically, it may be the most dangerous call, 911 call, that does come in when there is domestic abuse, because you're talking about, in a situation like that, there's just as best as one can think about it, we're going to go with the stereotypical, the abusive husband or boyfriend to the woman. They tend to already think this is their business. Who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? This is my property. I can do what I want. And so the idea of somebody else coming in and they're going to tell you what to do, I mean, it's just everything about it is horrifically dangerous. And the social workers that will be in the most danger are going to be females. This is supposed to be the political party that cares so much about women. Setting up scenarios. I don't know that I can think of a more dangerous scenario for a woman that can be set up than tasking them with answering 911 calls when a domestic violence situation is at play. And again, with Mamdani, this most recent example of a domestic call, law enforcement, that she calls 911. She doesn't know that her husband's armed. He is, ends up in a shootout with police. Instead of Mamdani going, you know what, maybe I'll reevaluate my position, he claims that proves that he's right. These people are psychotic. Now, here's a real gem of a story in the Hill. George Clooney says President Trump is, quote, not wrong that movie productions are exiting Hollywood, but the solution to luring them back lies in a federal tax rebate, not a tariff on foreign-made films. In an interview with the Associated Press at the New York Film Festival premiere of J. Kelly on Monday, Clooney said, quote, look, he's not wrong about the idea that businesses have left Los Angeles. They have, and in droves. What we need to do, or what we need, is the tax incentives that you get here in New York. They're building studios here because there's so much work. We need those. Our movie-making business has been stolen from the United States of America by other countries, just like stealing candy from a baby. That's what Trump had written. Clooney said rather than a tariff, because this is what Trump has done, he's put a tariff on foreign films as incentive to have the films done here in the United States. And so Clooney is saying, well, listen, he shouldn't be doing the tariffs. We should just have lower taxes here. Well, isn't that rich coming from a rich Hollywood celebrity that constantly backs the political party that talks about how we don't pay enough taxes, particularly the, quote, rich? And you're talking about one of the richest industries, not just in the United States, but in the world. And this is a classic example of why people on the left are stereotyped as not being able to think. George Clooney is arguing, accurately, that lower taxes helps the economy. He is arguing that, yes, in Hollywood, we are losing the film industry because our taxes are too high, and the film industry are going to areas of the country or the world in which it costs less. And some of it's regulations as well. A lot of it, you have unions at play, but they're talking specifically about the taxation issue. And he then goes on to argue this approach is incorrect. Instead of putting tariffs on films that are done outside of the country in order to level the playing field, we should level the playing field and help the local Los Angeles economy by lowering taxes on the industry. Now, this is the same guy who, if he's sitting up on a stage with Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders talks about the need to jack up taxes on corporations because they need to pay their fair share, George Clooney would be the first one standing there applauding next to him. And so this means a person with a mind, and this is typical leftism. Typical leftism. Rules should apply to everyone else that do not apply to them, whether they are environmental, whether they are regulatory, whether it has to do with free speech, or in this case, taxes. Well, sure, other corporations should have to pay their fair share, but we need to have ours lowered because that helps our economy. That helps jobs. So this tells us one of two things about George Clooney. He's just an idiot, and somehow, as inconceivable as it may be, can't connect he can't see this. He can't see that the very thing he's arguing for in his industry is what he is against in every other industry. Incidentally, when it comes to his own industry, he is correct in his calculation on taxes and jobs. It's just he manages to be wrong when it comes to every other industry. So either he's an idiot, or he's just a selfish piece of crap who understands that taxes are harmful to other industries, that taxes are harmful to other workers all across the country, but he doesn't care. He only cares about his industry because that's what affects his bottom line. And who could blame him? I mean, hard times for George Clooney, after all. Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 417-447-KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Someone texted in a great question. Aren't most of the taxes in California levied by the state of California? Now, this is in regards to George Clooney saying President Trump is not wrong that movie productions are exiting Hollywood, but the solution to luring them back lies in a federal tax rebate, not a tariff on foreign-made films. This is the layer cake of absurdity and hypocrisy of George Clooney and the left. See, he's not even, these people have tried and figure out their twisted minds. He's not even calling for, but you're right, yes, the real tax problem is California when it comes to Hollywood and regulations and so forth. But instead of calling for the lowering of taxes in California, he is calling on Trump to issue federal tax rebates. So in other words, the industry would not have to pay federal taxes in order to offset the disproportionately high taxes that they pay in California. It's a Rube Goldberg way of going around. Instead of just saying maybe we should just, where's the problem? Oh, it's state taxes. Let's cut those. No. Instead of doing that, let's keep those taxes high, because calling on those to be cut, see, that goes against the Democrat grain. That makes it way too obvious that you're recognizing that Democrats raise taxes too high. So instead, put the burden on Donald Trump. See, the problem is Donald Trump. Donald Trump won't give a federal rebate to the industry to offset the Democrats' high taxes on the industry in Hollywood. That's the way their twisted minds think. Because nothing is about the truth. Nothing is about, let's just look at the problem and fix the problem. It's Donald Trump's the problem, so how can we call on Donald Trump to fix the problem that we created? Oh, you need to give us a rebate, federally speaking, so that we don't feel the pain and suffer the consequences of our own policies. It is exhausting dealing with these people. Traffic update.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today you'll see patchy fog for your morning drive and then mostly cloudy with a high near 75. Tonight partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny with a high near 77.
Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. If you haven't seen the videos of my outdoor living space, I actually consider it phase one. In the next couple of years, we are hoping to expand into more of the landscaping. We have the incredible hardscaping patio done by Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. You can see a number of videos on my Facebook page. That's Nick Reed. They, of course, do the custom landscaping installation tailored to your lifestyle, and that may be just as simple as having nice patio living space. Maybe I've got a smokeless fire pit that is built in, and you can go as just simple as that to accommodate what you're looking for and for the needs that we have. That does just that. Or you can get more elaborate with outdoor sound and lighting and water features, and make it more like a spa if you want to. They can create anything. They are absolute top of the line. They're premium, and because of that, they are in high demand. So if you're thinking, boy, maybe when we get our tax returns next spring, get in touch with them today. Cannot recommend that enough. You can visit them at hunterhardscapes.com. They've got their phone number information there, and also an online contact form that you can fill out. Also, if you forget the site, worry not. You can go to ksgf.com, Nick's endorsements, and find the information there. I wanted to play some audio, and I know this gets said quite often. The Trump administration is filled with individuals that could virtually all of them, teach a master class on how to deal with an ignorant and biased media. Part of what's so remarkable about it, and this is what I find just enjoyable about Donald Trump, is really it's the opposite of his first term. And it's not to say there weren't quality people in a number of different ways during his first term. But there were a lot of those people that went out there and they had no clue how to deal with the media. I mean, you remember Scaramucci? Was he the one? There was one guy, I don't recall, it may have been Scaramucci, who was press secretary, I think literally for a day and a half before he got yanked. I mean, I think we forget, because of the constant attacks on Trump, how in some instances almost hilariously bad some of those people were in dealing with the media and knowing how to deal with them. Kellyanne Conway, to me, was the exception. She always did a great job. She wasn't necessarily, I'd say, the most charismatic or even most effective, but she was good at it. But outside of her, Omarosa, remember that gal? I mean, some of these people, I almost wish someone would, if they haven't already, make a compilation of some of that first term, some of the exchanges between these different individuals rotating through these positions in which they dealt with the press. But Trump this is what I love about the guy. He saw that was lacking in his first term. It is clear this time around, he not only picked people that were completely competent and on the same page as him, another lesson he learned, but that could go out there and just handle the press in such an incredible fashion. One of those individuals is White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. And he is on CNN, and he's on there talking about ICE, immigration, and the obsession the media has with trying to paint this as some sort of dictatorship, when all Trump is doing is enforcing the law, which he's mandated to do. He's actually doing what he is required to do. He's the first president in a very long time that actually is doing what he swore to do when it comes to the border, and that is enforcing the border laws that we have in immigration laws in this country. And here is Stephen Miller dealing with, who's this guy on CNN? I don't know. He's some bald guy with a beard.
You make the case that these are terrorists, but in what we've seen thus far, the actual incidents of people inciting violence and not responding to law enforcement attempting to disperse them are not an open rebellion. I mean, again, you make this characterization as though they're terrorists, and I do wonder if it is potentially a problem in the future for Republicans. If a Democratic president someday calls the National Guard to a red state over what they see as open rebellion, but is what amounts to a demonstration that gets rowdy. I mean, is that not a fear of yours?
They're posting pictures of their kids because it's a demonstration, and they have a sniper on top of a building firing a high-caliber rifle at a nice facility because it's a demonstration, and they are engaging in vehicle ramming
But the
attacks,
National Guard isn't
ramming
being sent to Texas.
because it's a
The National
demonstration.
Guard isn't being sent to Dallas where that sniper was.
Because the Dallas Police Department and the governor of Texas, well, you walked right into that one, have responded to every call for assistance and help. They gave a stand-down order in Chicago, and they gave a stand-down order in Portland. Do you realize that there's 11,000 federal law enforcement officers in Oregon? That's larger than the size of the FBI. Local and state police are resourced to deal with this kind of riotous assembly, but they have refused. They've been given a stand-down order. So
they've arrested
we need
some
to use
70
National
people
Guard and
since
federal
June.
troops
They've been
to fill
arresting
in
folks
that
on the
breach.
ground. They've been arresting folks on the ground. They refute what you're saying outright.
We literally have the 911 audio of this stand-down order in Chicago, and we have documented inside of DHS every single unresponded to 911 call over the recent weeks and months.
All right, so there's a number of things there, and some of it is an attempt to distract by the host of CNN. Say, well, look, there have been 70 people arrested since, June. Well, as Stephen Miller pointed out, that doesn't detract from the fact that you have in some of these Democrat-run jurisdictions, Chicago, for example, law enforcement being told to ignore 911 calls that come from federal agents who are under attack by the Democrats' modern-day version of the Klan, and that's Antifa. When he notes, boy, you walked right into this. I just love that exchange. Because this reminds me of Jim Acosta down at the Wall. This CNN host is trying to make it sound partisan. Well, Trump's only talking about dispatching the National Guard in Chicago and Portland, but down there in Texas, he's not talking about it. And there was that sniper down there, and Stephen Miller's like, yeah, that's because Texas worked to protect ICE. Texas was doing its job, which of course is further proof that is what this is about. This isn't about partisanship, other than the fact that Democrats have made it that way, but for Trump, it's not. And unknowingly, to which, of course, Stephen Miller again said, boy, you really walked into that one, the host of CNN proved that point. There's a sniper down there in Texas. Oh, well, he's not sending National Guard. Well, I guess I really checkmated you, didn't I? No, that's the point. Texas wasn't telling law enforcement to stand down. Texas wasn't telling ICE agents you're on your own when somebody who is a left-wing activist is trying to pick you off from a rooftop across the street. There was another exchange, and honestly, this audio to me is just fun because of the dismissive nature in which Miller notes that the question itself is stupid.
The substance of the question, is it the case that, as Pritzker frames it, you are profiling brown people, that this immigration crackdown is designed to go after people of color?
It's such a, oh, what a dumb question. The illegal aliens who are here are taking jobs away from blacks. They're taking jobs away from whites. They're taking jobs away from Latinos. They're taking their health benefits away, they're taking their school slots away, and of course, in many cases, they're committing heinous crimes. We cannot have a system of law in this country that privileges illegal aliens over American citizens, and that's what they're doing. You know it, and I know it.
So that's not exactly a no, Stephen. Can you just unequivocally state that the immigration policy... I said it's a dumb question. Okay.
Well,
I appreciate that, but
it's a dumb question.
Of course, Stephen Miller there is making the accurate points, and this is similar to the defund the police approach that the left has taken, that police should be defunded because, among other reasons, most of the criminals they arrest in the inner cities are black, so they're clearly targeting black people. Well, when it comes to immigration, most of these people that you're rounding up are, they're Mexican and South Americans. Well, yeah, they're not from Idaho. And while it's not impossible to find people in this country illegally who are white, one of them took a hammer to Nancy Pelosi's husband's head, that Canadian. When the border that has the vast majority of people coming across it into the United States illegally are South American, or, that border is Mexico, yeah, most of those people are going to be from below that border. And most of those people do have a skin color that is not white. Because the majority of individuals who come into this country happen to not be white, the Democrats' upside down logic here is that means that's why you're targeting them because of their color. So you're racist. But here's the reality. And this is ultimately the very concise answer. We are targeting people who are in the country illegally. The color of their skin is irrelevant to us. If 90% of the individuals who come across this border illegally that we target for that reason are white, so be it. If 90% aren't, so be it. We don't care. We are colorblind. That is morally our approach, and that is legally our obligation. When it comes to enforcing immigration laws, we're colorblind. We're going to take a quick break. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line, you want to weigh in, text in, 417-447-KSGF. Coming up, my gosh, I can't believe it's just like all of this is so easily predictable. Chicago gang leader offering a bounty to kill Border Patrol commander. The left is turning these countries like El Salvador and so many others in which they have fled to the United States to get away from a country in which the gangs have overrun the cities and villages in which they live, where law enforcement becomes fearful and on the defensive because there are bounties out for them. Democrats have managed to import that culture and that danger here to the United States. So the irony for those who did come here illegally to legitimately flee a dangerous environment because crime had been allowed to overtake things, have seen in many instances the cities in which they have fled to, like the Chicagos, Democrats have imported that for them here. So they brought it with them. The illegals didn't bring it with them necessarily. But the Democrats have laid out the red carpet, which is why we're now seeing this sort of behavior, whether it is gangs that are taking over apartment complexes in Colorado or gang members that are putting bounties on the heads of, just like in Mexico, they put bounties on the heads of the federales. And it's not uncommon for top law enforcement officials to either be kidnapped and executed or to have their families kidnapped and tortured and executed. This is the at least in some of the Democrat-run cities, what Democrats have brought to this country in 2025. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. Ah, yes, fall is finally here. It's starting to at least feel like fall, and the leaves are falling. And if cleaning your gutters is on the to-do list and you get up there and you notice some roof issues, don't go at it alone. I want to recommend my go-to guys, and that would be Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer residential and metal roofing services, and I know I just mentioned your home, but if you are a business owner, they do commercial roofing as well. And they offer a discount for our military and first responders on new roof installs. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home or your business, reach out to Josh and schedule that free roof inspection today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Federal agents in Chicago Monday arrested a suspected Latin Kings leader accused of offering cash bounties to capture and kill senior immigration officers working for, or one in particular, Operation Midway Blitz. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois unsealed a criminal complaint Monday charging 37-year-old Chicago resident Juan Espinizo Martinez with a single count of murder for hire. The Department of Homeland Security identified the official Martinez allegedly placed a bounty on as Commander-at-Large of the U.S. Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino. Martinez was taken into custody Monday morning, though his initial court appearance has not yet been scheduled. U.S. Attorney Andrew Boutros called the alleged plot an attack on the rule of law, noting putting a price on the life of law enforcement officer is an attack on the rule of law. The defendant's actions in this case demonstrate a profound contempt for human life and public safety under my leadership. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago will hold defendants accountable for their grave criminal actions and ensure that no federal officer has to fear for his life for doing their job. Now, understand, this is an action that is made easier by the demands of Democrats for ICE agents to be unmasked. And they know that. This is the reason that immigration officials are masking themselves, to protect their identity so that individual drug lords or gang leaders cannot put a bounty on them. And Democrats know that. We know that because this is how it works in Mexico. This is how it works in El Salvador. You have an alliance between drug cartels and human traffickers and gang leaders and the Democrat Party in these cities to target and to make easier to target immigration officials and federal law enforcement. There is no getting around it. This is an alliance. Got to get a traffic update. Went a bit long the last time around. My apologies for that. I'm Nick Reed. In the upcoming hour, I just want to go over a bit it's a very brief overview, not going to get too in the weeds. The history of the Ku Klux Klan. And it's very clear that Antifa today is operating as the Klan did during a period of time in this country, and that is carrying out sort of the militant actions of the Democrat Party for the purposes of threatening and intimidating political opposition. This is just a repeat of what we dealt with the Klan in this country. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hey, everyone. Welcome. My name is Nick Reed. Before the hour is done, let me make sure I do. Oh, boy. Well, all right. I don't know that I'm going to... There's a lot of different things here, so I don't know that I'll get into it in depth, but you will hear about it today. It was revealed that former special counsel Jack Smith was allegedly spying on a number of Republican senators. He was tracking their private communications and phone calls of nearly a dozen. We're looking at tracking the phone calls of Lindsey Graham, Marsha Blackburn, Ron Johnson, Josh Hawley, Cynthia Loomis, Bill Hagerty, Dan Sullivan, Tommy Tuberville, and Mike Kelly. The documents recently discovered by FBI Director Kash Patel, exclusively obtained by Fox News Digital, titled Cast Assistance, dated September 27th of 23. Cast refers to the FBI Cellular Analysis Survey Team. The document, which also has the names of FBI agents involved, redacted, marks the case ID as Arctic Frost, Election Law Matters, Sensitive Investigative Matter. The document states the names of the lawmakers and that an FBI special agent on Smith's team conducted preliminary toll analysis on the toll records associated with the lawmakers as well. So much like a police state, for a political party, the Democrats, that like to throw around terms like Gestapo, we constantly learn that under the Biden administration, and even prior to that, deep state, we learned at one point that the CIA was spying on senators, like in their official duties. This is something, it was Brennan or Clapper, I think it was Brennan, one of the two, lied about before Congress, got caught lying about it, and was, as usual, allowed to correct his testimony. But these people on the left, any opportunity that we have to learn that there are police state tactics, that lawmakers, the opposition party is being tracked through their travel, their phone calls are being monitored, much like, just any sort of, whether it's, Gestapo or just police state internal authorities, it's at the hands of the Democrats. When the Democrats are in charge, it's like in terms of tracking political opposition, it's like living in East Germany. For citizens as well. Parents being tracked using the Patriot Act. Catholic churches being infiltrated with an attempt to recruit members of the church to spy on those who attend church. These are all things that we know were done during the Biden administration. No one denies it. You had the Biden administration tracking, among others, Tulsi Gabbard, because she was at the time a Democrat that called out the administration, was critical of them. So they literally had federal marshals following her through airports secretly and following her on airplanes. Now we find out that Jack Smith was monitoring the phone conversations of Republican U.S. senators, including Josh Hawley, was monitoring their movement through what tolls they went through and so forth. You want to talk about a police state? They say Trump wants to have a police state. We've lived in a police state. We've seen what it looks like. And this is yet another revelation. And there will be no repercussions. No one will be held accountable, either legally or electorally, I suspect. And the Democrats will still, in light of this latest revelation of a police state run by the Democrats, they will still be out there today claiming that Donald Trump is the wannabe dictator. Donald Trump is the one that wants to suppress political opposition. Donald Trump is the one that's a danger to political opposition. I mean, it is remarkable, the projection and the gaslighting that comes out of the media and the Democrat Party. It's just the latest revelation. But yeah, I mean, Democrats, it's like living in East Germany with these folks. I want to get the latest news, and then I want to just reflect a bit, just a moment. The brief history of the Klan. Because when you look at Antifa and the way that Antifa operates and the relationship between Antifa and the Democrat Party, it becomes clear Antifa is today's Klan from the 1800s, the Reconstruction era. The Democrats once again have this loosely affiliated entity of radical individuals that are utilizing as best as possible anonymity by covering their faces and violence and the threats of violence in order to intimidate Republicans, voters, and elected officials. Exact same purpose, just a different name. And the face covering's different. And instead of riding on horses, they oftentimes ride those little scooters. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see patchy fog for your morning drive and then mostly cloudy with a high near 75. Tonight partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 77.
Let's see. All right, let's talk about the Klan a little bit, shall we? And I think it is important. The Democrat Party really does work in these cycles, and they go back to their roots. It's repeat, recycle, repeat, recycle, repeat, recycle. It just goes over and over again in these circles. And once upon a time, the Democrat Party had a group of activists that weren't necessarily arranged by or commissioned by the Democrat Party, but they had the same ideals and goals as the Democrat Party, but they were angry that through the normal process, they weren't able to get their way. And so, believing they were doing something noble and righteous, they covered their faces and they used violence and the threats of violence in order to get what they wanted. And that was called the Klan. Today, it's Antifa. It is the same thing. I wanted to read to you from History.com just a brief overview of the history of the Klan. And as I read it to you, think about Antifa and how it operates today. And the reaction to it, what its goals are, as they state. From 1867 onward, black participation in public life in the South became one of the most radical aspects of Reconstruction, as black people won election to Southern state governments and even to U.S. Congress. For its part, the Ku Klux Klan dedicated itself to an underground campaign of violence against Republican leaders and voters. In an effort to reverse the policies of radical Reconstruction and restore Democrat white supremacy in the South. They were joined in this struggle by similar organizations such as the Knights of the White Camellia, launched in Louisiana in 1867, and the White Brotherhood. At least 10% of the black legislators elected during the 1867 through 68 constitutional conventions became victims of violence during Reconstruction, including 7 who were killed. White Republicans derided as carpetbaggers and scallywags by Democrats, and black institutions such as schools and churches, symbols of black autonomy, were also targets of Klan attacks. Though Democratic leaders would later attribute Ku Klux Klan violence to poorer Southern white people, so in other words, they tried to distance themselves like, that's not us. The organization's membership crossed class lines from small farmers and laborers to planters, lawyers, merchants, physicians, and ministers of the Democrat mindset. So it wasn't the Klan, it wasn't as the Democrats there, tried to portray, this isn't political, this is just a bunch of poor people, that's all that it is. That's not what it was. You had all walks of life, from poor to rich. It was about ideology. In the regions where most Klan activity took place, local law enforcement officials either belonged to the Klan or declined to take action against it, and even those who arrested accused Klansmen found it difficult to find witnesses willing to testify against them. Now, what is that similar to? Local law enforcement officials either belonged to the Klan or declined to take action against it. How long have we watched cities under siege by Antifa because local law enforcement is told to stand down? This is the whole reason that Trump has talked about, in some instances has done it, activated or attempted to, dispatch National Guard to protect federal agents, because local law enforcement, just Chicago and Portland, the two latest examples, local law enforcement is not enforcing the law when it comes to Antifa, just as local law enforcement during the era of the Klan refused to enforce the law and arrest Klansmen back then because they were doing their bidding. They were targeting their enemy. Other leading white citizens in the South also declined to speak out against the group's actions, giving them tacit approval. After 1870, Republican state governments in the South turned to Congress for help. So you had, again, it's very similar to what we are seeing today, in which Republicans are saying this is needed. The National Guard is needed to help against Antifa, these different, activist wings of the Democrat Party, because they're carrying out acts of violence, and Democrat-run cities refuse to protect the people, the citizens, and federal law enforcement. This is history happening again. So after 1870, Republican state governments in the South turned to Congress for help, resulting in the passage of 3 enforcement acts, the strongest of which was the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. For the first time, the KKK Act designated certain crimes committed by individuals as federal offenses, including conspiracies to deprive citizens of the right to hold office, serve on juries, and enjoy the equal protection of the law. The act authorized the president to suspend the writ of habeas corpus and arrest accused individuals without charge and to send federal forces to suppress Klan violence. This expansion of federal authority, which Ulysses S. Grant promptly used in 1871 to crush Klan activity in South Carolina and other areas of the South, outraged Democrats. Well, of course it did. Just like the Democrats today are outraged at Donald Trump utilizing or attempting to utilize the National Guard in order to crush Antifa. This is the exact same thing. So Grant, doing the same thing back in 1871, attempting to crush the Klan, outraged Democrats, and even alarmed some Republicans. From the early 1870s onward, white supremacy gradually would reassert itself, its hold on the South, as support for Reconstruction waned. By the end of the 1876, white supremacy won over, and the entire South was under Democratic control once again. By the way, this is History Doc. This is like the History Channel, which oftentimes leans a little bit left. This is not some revisionist history. Incidentally, I mean, what a great history lesson this would be in American classrooms today. To watch history, and what a great way to get kids to understand and remember history, to relate it to what is going on today. You had these Democrat activists from the South really ticked off at the Republicans over the issue of slavery and black people being free and so forth. The issues may be somewhat different today, but the target is the same, and it's the Republican Party. And so they used threats and intimidation. They used violence, and they covered their faces so they couldn't be identified. And in Democrat-run areas of the country, law enforcement knew not to arrest Klansmen. Just let them do their thing. Just like in Chicago, Portland, or any of these other cities run by Democrats, they are letting Antifa have their way. They are refusing to arrest Antifa. You had eventually Republicans get Congress to act. Then President Grant used that authority to send in, or use the federal authority to go in and crack down on the Klan, which is what Trump is trying to do with Antifa, and the Democrats pitched a fit about it under Grant, and they're pitching a fit about it under Donald Trump. You take out the dates and the names of the two organizations, and they're indistinguishable from one another. And unfortunately, I suspect there's not a single history or current event classroom in this entire country that is utilizing this as an opportunity to teach young people about history in this country and how people are more than willing to repeat it. And in this case, specifically the Democrat Party. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Yesterday wrapped up the first ever massive green tag sale with the Pinnaker folks at all their locations. Barry, I think, is going to be joining us at Scramblers Friday. I look forward to hearing how all of that went. But I do want to remind you about the Pinnaker Advantage. You purchase those vehicles, Pinnaker Honda, and 20% off of your oil change and tire rotations thereon after. And so it's just one of the many advantages to purchasing a vehicle with Pinnaker Honda. And then if you do also get from one of the other Pinnaker locations, Republic Branson, you still get 10% off at the Pinnaker Honda location. So there's added bonus there as well. So often it seems the incentives are given to bring new people in. And one of the things that the Pinnaker family likes to do is provide incentives to the people who have been around, to the people who are loyal customers, as opposed to giving the benefit only to those who they're looking to add to the family. And it's just a nice way of doing things, I think, in a different way than so many others do. Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Coming up, Jimmy Kimmel ratings continue to circle the drain after the left got all excited about the huge spike, which ironically was, I just think this is so funny. The left sometimes seemingly don't understand what they're celebrating. When he came back on and had, in fact, I'll just talk about this because it's short. So on Thursday, October 2nd, Jimmy Kimmel Live averaged 1.9 million viewers, shedding 71% of the audience that tuned in for the host's return from suspension. The decline among the advertiser-coveted demographic of adults, 25 to 54, was even more significant, as Jimmy Kimmel Live managed 265,000 viewers from the critical group on Thursday night to lose 85% of the 1.7 million who tuned in when he apologized. So he's back down to where he was. And this should come as no surprise. When he had his show in which he was it was his first one back, and so you had a lot of people obviously tune in out of curiosity to see if he was going to apologize, if he was going to grovel, if he was going to cry, if he was going to do, whatever. And when there was an obvious peak in numbers out of curiosity, the left really celebrated that. I'm like, people are tuning in almost out of the macabre attempt to see if this guy's going to cry. Like, this is not a bragging point. This is not... You should not be proud or pleased with the fact that this is what brings him viewership. But, it's the mind of the left. And it, of course, has gone back down to the way it was before. And what a wasted opportunity. Because Jimmy Kimmel went right back to his bitter ways of alienating half of the American people. When he had a massive spike relative to his normal anemic viewership, tune in, and he had the opportunity. It's like a new grand opening to win people over, to keep those people, to demonstrate, hey, the stereotype you hear about me being some bitter left-wing mean guy that isn't even funny. That's not true. Here's what I really am. And that would be job security, not just for him, though I suspect that's all he worries about, but I don't know how many people actually work for him that don't make nearly the money that he does. Probably lower to middle income people, given that it's California. But he demonstrated he had no interest whatsoever in doing that. None. Instead, took that opportunity and completely just tossed it aside so that he could fulfill his own emotional needs of demonizing people that he doesn't like. Golly gee whiz, I can't imagine why more Americans don't want to tune into that every night. Last traffic of the morning, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today, patchy fog for your morning drive-in and then mostly cloudy with a high near 75. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 52. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 76. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny with a high near 77.
It was 2 years ago today that Hamas launched the single most effective and horrific attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust, attempting to finish what Hitler started. And just as horrific, we saw Democrat activists on university campuses all across this country celebrating it and joining in, essentially, by trying to run Jews off campus, openly calling for the death of Jews. And then, of course, those universities like Harvard going to great lengths to defend the rights of people to call for Jews to be exterminated, and the Democrats standing up on behalf of Hamas and those calling to finish what Hitler started. All the way up to and including Kamala Harris refusing to pick a running mate who is a Jew, that being Josh Shapiro, who was the no-brainer best pick possible for her as the Democrat governor of Pennsylvania. I think about, it being 2 years ago, and I think, man, it doesn't seem like that long. And then when I'm comprehending the time and that there's still hostages, still 2 years. Families of those hostages still held in Gaza, collectively with relatives of those that have been returned, have urged the Norwegian Nobel Committee yesterday to award Donald Trump the Nobel Peace Prize, saying with, quote, a profound sense of momentous urgency that Trump's determination made possible what many said was impossible, and that in this past year, no leadership and no organization has contributed more to peace around the world than President Trump. The family members of the hostages said from the moment of his inauguration, he brought us light through our darkest times. Well, what do they know? The Hostages and Missing Family Forum sent the letter days before the committee announced this year's laureate on Friday. Quote, "We write to you as families who have endured unimaginable darkness, families torn apart by captivity, living each day with the agony of empty chairs at our tables and the desperate hope that our loved ones might one day return home." The families credit Trump with prioritizing hostage recovery from the start of his presidency, saying his unwavering commitment and extraordinary leadership returned 39 loved ones and, 4 others, allowed the dignity of burial and closure, a mercy we feared we may never receive. They added that he has secured the freedom of dozens of U.S. citizens as well as hostages of other nationalities from around the world. With the plan now on the table, the Hostages and Missing Families Forum struck an urgent tone, quote, "For the first time in months, we are hopeful that our nightmare will finally be over. We are confident that he will not rest until the last hostage is brought home, the war has ended, and peace and prosperity are restored to the people of the Middle East." The letter places the bid in a wider frame, in which the families note, since January, Trump has successfully mediated resolutions to numerous armed conflicts worldwide. Where others saw intractable violence, President Trump saw opportunity for peace. Where diplomats spoke of impossibility, he delivered results. While many have spoken eloquently about peace, he has achieved it, adding that his tangible results have saved countless lives. Citing Alfred Noble's mandate to honor those who have, quote, "done the most or the best work for fraternity between nations, for the abolition or reduction of standing armies, and for the holding and promotion of peace congresses," the family said Trump embodies this vision. He has not merely spoken of peace, he has delivered it. With the decision due Friday, the forum closed with a direct plea, quote, "We are confident that he will not rest until the last hostage is brought home, the war has ended, and peace and prosperity are restored to the people of the Middle East." The families issuing a final appeal, quote, "We strongly urge you to award President Trump the Nobel Peace Prize because he has vowed he will not rest and will not stop until every last hostage is back home. His unprecedented achievements in peacemaking deserve this recognition. For our families and for millions around the world affected by his efforts, this honor would affirm that determined leadership and bold action in service of peace are what truly matters in our world." For most people who recognize how all of this stuff works, they understand that the Nobel Peace Prize is reserved for the select elite, or at least for those that are the select elite to choose. And it is, and I think the families of the hostages here, they demonstrated to whom these awards normally go when they write that, where others saw intractable violence, Trump found opportunity. Where diplomats spoke of impossibilities, he delivered results. And while many have spoken eloquently about peace, he achieved it. It generally is reserved for those who talk eloquently about peace, who give these wonderful speeches, but who note the impossibilities and explain why it can't be done. And it's always just been symbolic for the sake of symbolism, separate from actual results. And I think most people have accepted that. And I think that it has also been awarded in such a fashion without a great deal of criticism because there haven't really been any individuals out there that have actually created meaningful peace in such a significant way that not giving it to that person would be just a complete in complete defiance of the existence of the award in the first place. But now there is that person. This award isn't something that is being given in a vacuum, in which there wasn't, in terms of results, an obvious answer. So, you give it to this person, you give it to that, oh, they give great speeches, and no one's like, well, what about, clearly this person over here obviously deserves it. They've been able to just do this dog and pony show with this award all this time. And I know that this is something that is not going to impact people who have Trump derangement syndrome. But Trump has done exactly what it is that this award is for. And Trump has done exactly what it is that the families of the hostages have argued is reason for him to receive the award, that he has done what others have said cannot be done. And that while others talk, he actually does it. Doesn't just, quote, try to do it, but does it, provides results. As discredited as the Nobel Peace Prize has become in the minds of many people because of the way that they have awarded it in the past, this is a whole new scenario. Because, again, they weren't like denying it to someone who necessarily really, really, really deserved it in order to symbolically giving it to people who are part of the club. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do now. Will they recognize that passing up Donald Trump for this award will be just so brazenly political that they will recognize it will do a severe amount of damage beyond what has already been done to the reputation of the Nobel Peace Prize? That will they recognize that to the point they'll say, we have to give it to this guy? Or will their derangement and hatred for Donald Trump override what they claim is their desire for peace and the recognition of those who accomplish it? I think it's 50-50. But we'll see. Man. And I know this is wrong. And it ain't the point. But the pleasure some of us will get from knowing how the Democrats' heads are going to internally explode if Donald Trump gets the Nobel Peace Prize. That I know that should not be the reason that I would love to see it, but I think honesty is an important trait, and I got to be honest. That right there would be the best part of it all. Just listening to him talk about, because they'd be asked about it. That if it happens, they're going to be asked about it and just, I really hope it happens for that reason. We'll see. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical, Heating and Air. The cooler weather is slowly creeping in, and if you haven't tested your furnace, now is the time to do it. And if you experience any issues, make sure to get ahead of those before fall really kicks in. And I want to recommend Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Now, the Foreman team, they do residential and commercial HVAC services, and they also offer a 24/7 emergency service line in case something pops up after those normal business hours. They're honest and reliable, so if that is what you are looking for in a company, you found it with Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. If it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell and his team and schedule an appointment. Now, you can do that at foremanmechanical.com, or you can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
So we talked earlier about the revelation that Jack Smith, the Democrat prosecutor that was trying to imprison Donald Trump, was secretly also monitoring the phone conversations of a dozen Republican U.S. senators, Josh Hawley being one of them, and was also like their tolls, when they would go through tolls, monitoring their travel in that way. And we know that during the Biden administration, Tulsi Gabbard was tracked. The Patriot Act was used in order to monitor parents. That the Democrats, when they have the ability to, they operate these levels of, quote, law enforcement like the East German Stasi. It is tracking political opposition for the purposes of monitoring them. So here is some new revelation. And I'm telling you, this, just the opening paragraph, it shouldn't be funny, but it is. It's horrific. Then Vice President, this is a Fox News. And so it's this is new declassified information that has been released. Then Vice President Joe Biden in 2015 told the CIA that he would strongly prefer an intelligence report documenting Ukrainian officials' concerns with his family ties to corrupt business deals in the country not be disseminated. And so it wasn't, according to a newly declassified email and records made public by the agency. There's just something farcically hilarious about the fact that, so Joe Biden tells the CIA, that report you have about my family and all the money changing hands and how the Ukrainians are worried because of how corrupt my family is. I would strongly prefer that you just cover that up. Yeah, I bet you would. And of course they did. CIA Director John Ratcliffe's declassified the heavily redacted records, which he said he believes is an example of politicization of intelligence. Well, of course it is. A senior CIA official briefed Fox News Digital on the declassified documents and intelligence report, stating that the intelligence was discovered along with an email showing that Biden, quote, expressed a preference to not share the report. Yeah, I'm sure that he did. The gall. If I don't know what I would do if I were in that situation. If I learned, here I'm Vice President of the United States, and I learned that the CIA had, we already know the Treasury Department had red flags all over the place because of these dealings and this is the Obama years. This isn't Donald Trump. The Obama years, the Treasury Department was red flagging left and right. All of this money coming from all of these oligarchs, all of these corrupt governments into all these Biden bank accounts. And you're the Vice President of the United States, and then you find out that the CIA has this report regarding the Ukrainians extremely concerned about all of this corruption and how compromised not just Biden but his family is. And if I'm in that situation, I think of a movie like one of those, Clear and Present Danger, or those Jack Ryan films, which like if you had somebody that was a character in that situation, they might kill themselves, right? Because they're boxed into a corner. Not Joe Biden. He picks up the phone. He's like, "Hey, all that dirt you have on me, I'd really prefer if you just kind of not tell anyone." The gall, but it worked. They were like, "Okay, we'll keep it hidden for you." And why not? Because if you have that sort of dirt on someone who then becomes president of the United States, guess who's really running the country? Ozarks elder law, Lori Rook. You may, I saw, I don't know what it is about, I don't know, it seems like the last few months there's a lot of these ads. Just go online and you can make your own will. And I had on one of my social media feeds an ad for it. Will and trust, just do it yourself. No, nope, doesn't work that way. You know, I equate it to that air conditioner in a can stuff. You see, every time the weather starts to get warm and your air conditioner's not working, hey, it's a lot cheaper. Here's the thing of stuff that you just buy and you hook it up and put it in, and all of a sudden your air conditioner works. And 99% of the time, not only does it not work, but it can completely destroy your air conditioning unit, and you have to get it completely replaced. And that is what I think of when I think of these. Just do it quick and easy. Just download a will. You don't need a professional to do it. Okay, maybe you roll the dice and you get lucky, but do you really want those odds when you're talking about your family, when you're talking about the medical power of attorney, when you're talking about keeping the family farm? I recommend that you don't. You want to get in touch with the ladies in white, as they're known famously. Lori Rook and her crew, Ozarks Elder Law, 10 area locations. Reach out, set up a free consultation. So you may not even know what you don't know, but they will let you know that. And then in the free consultation, they'll let you know, here's what you need to do. This is what it will cost up front, one price, and then you can decide whether or not to make the move. OzarksElderLaw.com. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.